Hey there, let's keep going with our Google Ads course. In this lesson, we're finally going to pull the trigger and launch the ad campaigns we've been prepping over the last 20 lessons. Technically, our ads are already live. Why technically? Because all our ads have passed moderation and the campaigns are toggled on. You can see it by the eligible status and those green circles next to the campaign names. But de facto, the ads are off, because we set such a tiny daily budget that the impressions won't even start. You guys know exactly why we did that from our previous lessons. So, to actually launch, we just need to bump up the budgets and that's it. As soon as we do, the impressions will kick off automatically. And that's true. However, before the big launch, I want to show you a few more useful tips that will be super helpful for beginners. That's actually why I'm recording this lesson. So, let's get into it. When you hover over any campaign, a small downward arrow appears next to that green circle. Click it and you'll see the basic controls. Enable, pause and remove. Never remove anything unless you absolutely have to. Only if you messed something up completely by mistake. Otherwise, it's always better to just hit pause. You never know. You might need it in the future. Once something is removed, it's not gone forever, but you can't relaunch it. Though you can make a copy, which is a plus. You can also check the box next to any campaign, hit edit and launch it. You can select multiple campaigns at once. Or just check the top box to select everything. As you can tell, I'm walking you through the key parts of the UI. I'll click edit. From here you can enable, pause or remove all selected campaigns at once, among many other actions. For now I'm going to pause all the campaigns. And you're probably like, what the heck, why'd you do that? We're supposed to be launching ads, not turning them off. Patience, folks. Look, the campaigns disappeared. This is exactly what I wanted to show you. When ads are paused, they might just vanish, and that's when beginners start to panic. But there's no need to panic. It's all about the filters. They're right here at the top. See where it says campaign status enabled? That means only active campaigns are showing right now, and the rest are hidden. If I select enabled paused, they'll pop back up. If I select all, it'll show everything. Active, paused and removed, like literally everything. I'll pick all. And there they are. Our campaigns are set back. If I picked enabled paused, nothing would change in our case, since we haven't removed any campaigns yet. Usually we stick with the default enabled view, but I'll leave it as is for now. When our campaigns are paused, you'll see not eligible in bright red everywhere, in the ad groups and further down the structure. Honestly, I don't know why they designed it this way. In my opinion, that little note at the bottom, campaign is paused, is enough. That's the actual reason it's not eligible, not because something is wrong with your setup. Alright, we can select all campaigns, hit edit, enable them and set new average daily budgets. You already know how to do this. We covered it in detail. I'm going to do this in Google Ads Editor, opening it up. First thing, I click Get Recent Changes and select More Data. Click OK. The highlighting shows that the changes were about pausing the campaigns. I'll hit Done. Just like in the web interface, you can launch or pause campaigns right here. By the way, I mentioned that removed campaigns, just like ad groups, keywords and ads, aren't actually deleted, you just can't run them anymore. Well, you can still see them in the web UI, but you can't load them into Ads Editor. You can also change the campaign status in the settings on the right. You can select several campaigns and make adjustments. But of course, we'll select all of them and switch paused to enabled. Now we need to set the average daily budget. How much should it be? There are two key things here. First, let's head over to the ad groups to remind ourselves of the max cost per click CPC we set. In our case, it was between $3 and $4 per click. When setting the budget, you need to estimate how many clicks you want to get. Actually, look at it this way. If your click price is, say, $10 and you set a $10 budget, you're basically only getting one click. I say basically because we're setting a max CPC, not the actual one. So the real price might be lower, but still. The second point is more fundamental. Setting up an ad isn't hard. Literally anyone who watches a YouTube tutorial can do it. But being able to perform a smart analysis, that's rare. And analysis is the whole game. The initial launch isn't a guarantee of results. It's just a start. Whether it takes off or not depends on the setup, but also on a bit of luck. It'll either work or it won't. But we've built an ad structure that is super easy to analyze and fine-tune. You'll see this clearly in the upcoming lessons on ad analysis. My point is, you need to start with small budgets, make sure everything is running smoothly, and only then scale up. Or launch, get a weak result, tweak it until it's acceptable, and then scale. Only in that order. So it turns out you should launch with a budget that you are psychologically comfortable with. Imagine you launched and didn't sell anything for a couple of weeks. What's an amount you can let go of without stressing out? That's your initial budget. It doesn't mean you won't get sales. It just means you shouldn't dive into an unfamiliar pond without knowing how deep it is or what's at the bottom. Walk into the water slowly, make sure it's safe and there are no sharp rocks, and only then dive in. I hope that metaphor lands. I'm selecting all campaigns and setting the budget to $10 a day. Notice that's not $10 total. It's $10 for each campaign. So $30 total. In my case, that's more than enough to show you how to do the follow-up analysis. I definitely don't recommend being greedy. Pick a number that works for you. If $100 a day at the start is cool with you, go for it. If it's 1,000, set it to 1,000. Basically, set your own psychological comfort zone. You can always tweak it later, and I'll walk through that again in the analysis lessons. The system flagged it with a yellow warning icon, just for me to double check if it's a mistake that I bumped the budget more than 10 times. But that was the plan. Publishing the changes. Hit post, then post again, and close. Going back to the web UI and refreshing the page. Done. Campaigns are enabled, budgets are up. Now look, I'm sending real traffic to a fake business for this demo. So I'm removing the phone number and address from the site. I only needed them as examples to explain how the map pins work and how to set up call conversions. Moving forward, we'll be analyzing actual impressions and clicks within the ad account using a real example. Now I need to explain how billing works. A lot of people don't get why, for example, they turned off their ads, but money was still debited 2 weeks later. Let me show you. This is one of my active ad accounts, so I've blurred some info here. First, let's look at the charges here. Google charged $50. The next charge was $200, then $350, and a bit later $500. We're on a post-payment system here. You spend first, then you pay. When an account is new, there's no trust yet, so Google might charge you after you've spent only $10. Once that payment goes through successfully, your payment threshold automatically goes up. And the next charge will happen when you hit $200 in spending, and so on. The threshold numbers can vary. Just make sure you get the core idea. It charges you either when you hit the threshold or simply once a month, even if you haven't reached the threshold yet. Now for the columns, date, nothing much to say there. Type, I have two types here, campaigns and payments. You might also see bonuses, like that $500 credit we picked during registration, or when Google refunds money for invalid clicks. That's when it detects click fraud and puts the money back into your account. Description is just more detail for the type column, like a specific campaign name or the card number used for the charge. Interactions. In our case, these are clicks. In other ad types, it might be impressions. Costs. The actual spend for a specific day. Credits. This is where your top-ups, bonuses, and invalid click refunds are listed in numbers. The source of these credits, as I said, is in the type column. Running balance. Everything listed here is how much you currently owe Google. For example, it went from 377 to 414, then to 525, and then the card was charged. Alright, I've told you everything I wanted to regarding the launch. Now, I'll show you what I did next, so you understand what we'll be analyzing in the next lessons. You don't need to follow along with what I'm showing right now, just watch and take note. I launched the ads with the settings I showed you and got a few impressions and clicks. Then I made some adjustments. I added Miami as a location and removed the radius targeting. In earlier lessons, I mentioned that radius targeting gets way better results than targeting the whole city. And I'm going to show you the data so you can see it for yourself, not just take my word for it. I also switched the keyword match type from exact to phrase. While I'm at it, look how easy that is. Our next lesson is actually all about match types, so I'm changing them now to show you the real world difference later. I promised you a practical course, not just dry theory. Keeping that promise. I'm also dropping the max CPC by $2 everywhere. For now, I'm just showing you what I'm doing. I'll explain the why behind all of this in the analysis lessons. Then I publish these changes. Look, these are the keywords before the match type change. They are all eligible, and we have some stats to the right. And here I am refreshing the page after publishing. Now they're all pending, and the stats are gone. That's because when we change the match type, Google treats them as brand new keywords. That's why they are pending with no history. We ran with these settings for a bit. Then I changed the match type again, this time from phrase to broad, again just to get some impressions and show you the difference. Published it. And once again the keywords went from eligible to pending. But it won't last long, the review is quick. So I ran the ads a bit longer like that. After that I paused the ads. And this is what we're going to analyze. If you remember, I specifically launched with a minimal amount of negative keywords to show you exactly how much money gets wasted when you skip that step. I intentionally ran ads for the whole city of Miami after the radius test and cycled through different match types. Because of that, the upcoming lessons on match types, search term analysis, cross-negative matching, and overall ad analysis will be based on real data, not some made-up numbers. Get ready, it's going to be interesting. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next lesson. Think bigger and make money.